All right, welcome into the Rewatch Reaction Show. Paul Dehner Jr. here with Charlie Goldsmith. We're inside of Paycor Stadium, where we've been kind of gathering up all the pieces from the Bengals Week 1 win over the Browns, 17-16. Excited about this show, Charlie. It's new, it's improved, it's extra this year. We're taking it to the next level this season.
I'm trying to think of what Bengals position group the improvements of this show resembles the most. Maybe linebacker, bringing back some old good stuff that we liked, but as well as an aggressive new flavor of upside. Maybe, let's say, in this show.
Perhaps we're the defensive line room. You know, there's a lot of new things happening there. Start with go big, right? TJ Slayton, you got to go big. But, maybe I should have said safeties are what we're going to be doing for you all season on this one. I want to let people know. So we're going to be bringing you inside the coaches' offices and inside the minds of the coaches with the film this year. It's not just going to be us. You're going to still get us. Don't worry. You're not losing us. We won't allow that. But we're going to bring the coaches into this conversation, what they saw in the film, the plays that they thought were important, the keys that they saw their players read, and the developments that are happening there, the developments that still need to happen. That's going to be in our coaches' office segment we're going to have in Rewatch every single week. It's presented by RNA Marketing, who created our new website, thegrowlerpodcast.com. Please go there, check it out. All things Growler on there. If you want to go see all the old shows, you want to get links to everything we do, merch, the schedule for all our live shows down at BetMGM. You can find it all on that website. But first of all, we're still going to be who we are. Jordan Kovacs is going to join us today to talk safeties, who had a huge day in the opener against the Browns. Great stuff coming your way from him in a minute. But we are going to lead you off, and we're going to do it the same way we always like to do it. Charlie, where'd you start?
Well, we all know the Browns made lots of mistakes, and those were some of the defining plays of the game. But what I really wanted to find were where were the winning plays from the Bengals defense. And now what they did best was they didn't beat themselves. They didn't get in their own way. They didn't have that one big undisciplined moment that we've become all too familiar with. Whether it was Jordan Battle and some key plays that we'll get to later with Jordan Kovacs. And then the defensive line as well. I have in my notes right here multiple times TJ Slayton, Shamar Stewart, Trey Hendrickson, BJ Hill, and Chris Jenkins. They all had multiple plays. Real plays, not plays where the Browns just gave the Bengals a gift. And the fact that there was that depth and that versatility in that room and what they were getting was my biggest positive takeaway for the Bengals defense.
I started there too. And when you were going through a lot of these plays, what stood out to me was how many different names were ending up on those plays. You know, it was like, I have a Chris Jenkins here, and I've got a Miles Murphy here, and I've got a Shamar Stewart here. I've got him tossing to Juan Jones. I've got a lot of TJ Slayton here. And a lot of that all came back to one thing that was really my biggest takeaway from this entire game from the defense was that what they said they were going to do a long time ago was start stopping the run better. I mean, I have all the old stats about how they were just getting run over in the AFC North. The AFC North knew how to beat the Bengals. Line them up and knock them down. Line them up and push them back. And they've been doing it for years here. And in the first opportunity, they go out, they get TJ Slayton. They get Shamar Stewart, who's big and strong. They get a little bit of a boost from Chris Jenkins, it looks like. Demetrius Knight comes in with a run-stopping prowess to him here, and you saw that with a bunch of tackles yesterday. You put it all together, you get the best performance by a Bengals run defense in 3 years. Here's the stats for you, Charlie. Going back to the beginning of 2023, there's been 35 Bengals games. Sunday ranked first in defensive rush success percentage, first in yards per rush allowed, first in yards before contact per rush, tied for first in run stuffs with 9, fifth in percentage of rushes for 0 or negative yards. This was as good as it has been in ages for the Bengals run defense.
Now, it's been a minute since we talked about how bad Cleveland is, and it's, I think, important that we keep bringing back up that caveat. You know, I believe Conklin missed most of that game with an injury. Their line's not what it used to be. A guy named Dylan Sampson was their running back. But even isolate who the opponent was and think of the individual moments. Like TJ Slayton's a guy, I compared his training camp to Chidobe Awuje's first training camp with the Bengals in just the fact that this guy showed up and you know what? He's good. Something you saw on Sunday was BJ Hill. Frankly, I had concern. He just missed all of camp. We have a long history of watching Bengals who have missed all of camp, performing and looking like themselves in week one. BJ Hill looked athletic, looked mobile. He even had an extra gear as a rusher and just in terms of the twitch than I saw from him most of last season. I was a bit more critical of his 2024. I feel great about how he looked now and what that means going forward. You look at Shamar Stewart. Just the pure force and even just how they were using him, the versatility that Al Golden talked about throughout training camp, how that translated. And then the most important one, Trey Hendrickson, who I think might have been the star of the game for the Bengals. You look at a lot of the biggest plays, there was Hendrickson making a big significant impact. You know, we saw Jamar Chase last year just not look like himself in week one after a hold-in. That was on the table. And to just not have, or to not have that, to be the guy who really did heat up as the game went on. That was a great way to impact how you feel about Trey Hendrickson moving forward.
They don't win this game without Trey Hendrickson. They don't. And imagine it would have felt like last year's game, year's opener. But having Hendrickson out there, imagine if they would have lost this game and not have paid Trey Hendrickson. The pitchforks. Would we even be in a stadium that's still standing right now, Charlie, or would it have been burnt to the ground is the only question. But they did. And he had 8 pressures. And he was disruptive when they needed him to be enough. And including, a play that leads to the interception by Jordan Battle that you're going to see in a minute. The other thing that I want to point out is I thought that the Chris Jenkins, BJ Hill combination in a 60-40 for BJ, when the snap split ended up being, had very much a BJ Hill, Larry Ogunjobi feel to it. What have we said about BJ Hill since Larry Ogunjobi left? BJ Hill was so much better in a rotation when they made him play so many snaps, 80, 85% some seasons. You saw the wear on him. He wasn't as effective. And I thought him having more time to rest, not having to be out there so much, showed up again. I was like, oh, that's the BJ Hill. Well, when he's out there, you always notice him. You're getting much more bang for your buck. You got the same thing from Chris Jenkins. I think they could be on to something by bringing back the old Ogunjobi Hill and now being a Hill Jenkins rotation. Could be great for both of them.
And I talked to Jerry Montgomery late last week, and he stressed the importance of just keeping BJ off the nose. I mean, how many times have we seen, well, the Bengals don't have an option to be their primary run-stopping defensive tackle? BJ will do it. And that has a significant impact just in terms of the schematics that offenses are able to throw at the Bengals in terms of the rushing attack. And that's kind of where Mike Pennell comes in, too. Not that he did anything flashy, but he let BJ play his proper position. I want to make sure we get here, too, because anything concerning from the Bengals defense, what stood out to you the most, maybe from a negative perspective, how the Browns kind of, matriculated down the field for the majority of that game?
I don't know how you don't come away with a little bit of concern about what's happening with Cam Taylor-Britt, who struggled in coverage in some big spots, and it seemed like they were attacking him. And you saw a couple, I remember talking to him after the game about one where he literally comes up, pounding his chest. That's my bad. He gets beat by Jerry Jeudy to the outside. A bunch of plays. It felt like when Cleveland needed a play and they knew they had to throw, it felt like they were looking for 29 and kind of picked on him a little bit. And for a guy that you were counting on to become CB1 this year, I thought that was a concerning start for him.
The story of this game very nearly was before the Browns, imagine if the Browns make that chip shot field goal. Well, it was that easy cross that Jeudy had against DJ Turner. And then it was kind of a deeper out where Cam's kind of dropping back and he just gets stuck. He kind of ends up on his back foot. That was, there might have been multiple. That was at least the my bad play that I saw. Also allowed a catch on the previous play. I think, and we're saying a lot of great things about Jordan Battle on this podcast. Well, I thought there were some learning moments for him in coverage, especially on scramble drills that he can take from as well. And the pass rush needed a bit more spice early on. All those will have to be better next week against Jacksonville because you're going to be in one-on-one matchups. You're going to be challenged by some really talented receivers, as well as a quarterback who, if you buy him some extra time, has arm talent to pull off some pretty impressive things. So while a lot worked, it was also a reminder of how much more needs to work next week against Jacksonville.
All right, let's get to the star of today's show, though, and let's get into the coach's office. It's time to go peek our heads in there. All right, now it's time for Coach's Office here on Rewatch Reaction, and it's sponsored by our good friends at RNA Marketing. You know, you might not know this yet, but we have a new website, thegrowlerpodcast.com, thanks to our good friends at RNA Marketing. I trust them. They're Growl pals. They're like, look, we can help you build your brand. It's what we do. And I said, I'm on board. And they're like, we love diving into the numbers. We love going the extra mile and being analytical. We know that's what your guys' show is. We love the Rewatch show for that. Let's do it. So here we are partnering with them on this show and in this segment. And we're going to get you our guest, Jordan Kovacs, in a minute. But first, you know, you've been hearing me talk about a while. We finally have the Growler podcast having a proper brand and world-class website. So I want to introduce you guys to RNA Marketing. They're literally building our brand's future as we speak. We chose them. We didn't just want a website. We wanted a strategic partner so you can see the incredible work for yourself. Go visit them at rnamarketing.com. They built the reputation as an absolute go-to agency in a really challenging competitive industry. High-end furniture and home goods. How do they end up here? Well, here's the thing that we're working with them because their expertise isn't just furniture. It's about building premium brands, driving measurable growth. They craft a beautiful, high converting website. They're doing that for us. It's a hub for your entire business. So whether you're in professional services, tech, consumer goods, or my show, the RNA Playbook is designed to make you the premier choice in your market. I can't give a bigger endorsement than to say we trust them with our business and with this segment. So let's get right to it. All right, now we're moving into a part that we're so excited about when it comes to the new Rewatch show, and that is we're adding in the experts. What we like to think of ourselves as experts, but these guys are the real experts. We're going to be hearing from coaches about some of their favorite plays, some of the most interesting plays every single week, and we're starting off with safeties coach Jordan Kovacs. Your room, Jordan, came front and center yesterday and made the big plays to win the game. It's got to feel good knowing that you already got an interception under your belt to start the year.
Yeah, we'll take them however they come. No, those guys played their butts off. It was a fun game, fun win. It's never easy in Cleveland, but we'll take them however we can get them, especially week one.
You had moving pieces at linebacker during the game. You had moving pieces at corner during the game. You know, even Gino was in and out. Jordan and then Gino when he was in. How'd you see those guys kind of help stabilize things and keep the ship going on the right track?
Yeah, those guys just do a really, really good job of communicating. And that's kind of like the day one point of emphasis for me is be a great communicator and be a great tackler. I view us as the quarterbacks of the defense. So that's, day one job is to communicate, get everybody on the same page. And I think that they've done that really all camp, all off season. And really, it was good to see that show up in the game week one.
Well, let's start on the biggest play of the game for your room, shall we? I think we have to start with the interception.
Yeah.
Just take us through this play and what really mattered here.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, it's just about coming up with the ball at the end of the play. From what I remember here, they were in a 2x2 quarterback under center. Really, all week, the alert there was play action shot. And, Jordan's playing deep half here and just makes a break on the ball and tips and overthrows. Got to get him. And that was a hell of a play in the game, but really a big turning point in this game.
How have you just seen Jordan improve as a whole on the deep half? Like, there isn't really a huge difference anymore between a strong safety and a free safety. But when he is the one back there, how have you seen him kind of develop in that area?
Yeah, I mean, these guys are more or less playing sides, which I think has been great because, you've got to know the whole back end in that way. You're not just a down safety or a post safety. That's what I like about this defense, and I think the safeties appreciate that. So, there's a lot more on their plate because they're not just learning half the defense; they're learning the whole defense. But I think that it benefits them in ways where they've got to communicate, the entirety of the defense, and also just helps them bring good versatility to the defense.
One thing I thought that really stood out to me yesterday was we heard all offseason from Al about read and react, play fast.
Yeah.
And man, we felt like we saw that in a bunch of spots yesterday. A huge play, the 3rd and 7. It ends up being a tackle on Judy. I'm going to bring up here. I mean, Jordan comes all the way from the opposite post to bring him down here in a huge play. What's the read on that? Take me through his eyes on this play and how he made that work so fast.
Yeah, this is a hell of a play. This is obviously a huge down in the game. We're just up one here, right? This is the fourth quarter, 3rd and 7. So first of all, I tip my cap to Coach Burks here because he did our 3rd down game planning. And, we knew that when number 3 was to the backside of the bye one, there was going to be some action. And if his split was cut, it was possibly going to be an under right now. And so this was just a tool we gave those guys on the field to really job exchange here. And Jordan's reading number 1. He goes under right now. He gives them an opportunity to work over the top through the traffic, and just a hell of a track and hell of a finish here on a huge play in this game, man. That one's fun to see. And what I like most is right here. Look at him. Look at the juice post play. That's what it's about right there. That's a great play.
What type of communication is there kind of in those moments before the ball gets snapped?
Yeah, there's a lot of communication, particularly on this defense. We believe in giving these guys tools and empowering them, letting them go out there and use those tools. So here, Jordan felt like, hey, cut split. There's an opportunity here to make a play on the shallow. DJ's got to obviously be in tune because he's got to replace Jordan when he does make this play. So a lot of pre-snap communication. And again, the safeties, really the whole back end, Jordan, Gino, these guys have been doing a hell of a job of just communicating pre-snap and just getting everybody on the same page. And again, it's cool to see that communication and that sort of play come up at a big play in the game.
A couple other examples. This wasn't at all just in the pass game. I thought, a day where your guys' run defense was as good as it's been in years by the numbers. That wasn't like, oh, TJ Slayton and BJ Hill and Shamar Stewart and those guys. They made plays, but so much of the filling from the safety room and anticipation. I felt like there was a ton of seeing the play before it happened from your guys' group. I want to bring this one up. This was a run stop that Jordan had. You see him running up almost before the play starts. He's up here at the top of your screen.
Yeah.
He's feeling that pitch, and it goes right to where he's attacking. How does he see that? Is that a key from film study?
Yeah, I saw a lot of things here, and I think you kind of hit it on the head a few minutes ago. Is we just have tried to keep the scheme simple and quiet, and we say clarity equals violence. So Jordan knows what he's got to do, and ultimately it allows him to just play fast and play physical and just blow this thing up. And it's just it's fun to watch these guys really cut it loose. So Jordan knows he's in the fit, right? The middle field's closed here. He sees the pin and pull. He goes and hits it. He's decisive. He's physical. And ultimately, it gives Logan an opportunity to run over the top here and make a great wrap and roll tackle. But to your point, really all game, you can't tip your hat enough to the front seven. And as a defensive back, playing the position and now coaching the position, there's just you're grateful when you've got a great front up front because it really calms a lot of things down on the back end. It allows you to go out there and make some plays, man. So those guys are doing a great job up front. This was a huge play in the game, and really all game they were just stout up front defensively, and that's what defensive football is about, especially in the AFC North, man.
We keep hitting on this theme of like read, react, communicate, and go. Why is that kind of the style of defense you guys wanted this to be this season?
Well, I think as a player, that's how I've always appreciated playing. It's just give me my rules, make it black and white, and just let me play fast. And then ultimately, I think what Al has done a great job of is kind of what I alluded to is give these guys tools as well. And you don't necessarily have to use these tools on the field, but if you find yourself in a tough position, use your tools. You're empowered. And we're never going to say, hey, no, don't use that tool here, or don't use it there. Just let them go out there, play fast, have some fun. And ultimately, when things are clear, you play with decisiveness and you play with violence, you play with physicality. And that's what football is all about.
I don't want to let Jordan Battle soak up everything here. I've got a Geno Stone play that because, Geno talk about anticipation. You saw some of the veteran feel out there in a couple of big spots.
Yep.
This one certainly stood out to me. You see Geno sneaking in here on the right side and blows that play up. That we saw that in camp a bunch where it seemed like he was really good at timing that up and getting that feel. Is that a unique skill for him and being able to feel the timing on plays like this?
Oh, without a doubt. He's got great instincts, and it ultimately it allows him to play fast. And so I've always appreciated that about his game is he is decisive. He is very instinctive. And here, ultimately there's a lot that goes into this play. We get us into the right check here. We felt like it was a rundown. The formation they gave us, we, communicated, got into the right defense. And when we talk about blitzing, we say two things in our defensive back room. It's about speed and it's about violence. Speed comes from timing, right? And we say there's three things that really help you time it up. There's triggers. First one is the cadence. The second one is really the shot clock. So as the shot clock gets low, use it. And then the third is when they give you a motion, right? This is a trigger for us. You see the jet motion, Gino times it up, snap, hits it off the edge, and really a great play in this game, man. That's fun to see.
Yeah. To take it in a bit of a slightly different direction, improvements, corrections, kind of what were the main things on your mind today when you looked at things you wanted to see the room do better heading into next week?
Yeah, there's a couple situations where we've got to plaster better. We gave up a couple of plays on the quarterback scramble, right? A couple of explosives that jumped on us there, and then just making sure we're not getting too deep in our zones. But ultimately, it's about just communicating, playing fast, playing with decisiveness. And if you look at it, we didn't give up many explosives on the back end, and that's what this defense is going to be about. Let the front, worry about the run, and on the back end, let's just limit the explosives. And when we have to get matchy, when we have to get tight, we will. But just do your job, play within the scheme. And I thought, on the back end, they did a hell of a job of that.
Well, Jordan, I want to thank you for spending a little bit of time letting us into your office for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Going through a little bit of the tape. You guys certainly earned some gold stars along with your win yesterday. So I know you got to be feeling good about that. A lot to build on, I'm sure.
No doubt.
Don't worry. It only gets harder from here. So You got that going.
Welcome to the NFL.
That's right.
You guys.
Awesome.
I appreciate you guys for having me.
Yeah. Thanks, Jordan. Appreciate it. I want to thank Jordan again for coming in and joining us. He was awesome. And a reminder, if your business is ready to stop tinkering and start building a serious professional brand that gets results, you need to talk to the team at RNA Marketing. They are the real deal. We're trusting them with our brand. That's the best endorsement I can give. So visit them today at ramarketing.com. That's ramarketing.com. Schedule a consultation and tell them the Growler sent you already. So one thing I want to say coming out of that conversation with Jordan, who was fantastic, and there's a lot of things that we can add on to that. The communication, the read react stuff, seeing things happen almost before they did was really noticeable. And it made me think like, man, there's got to be some tells or something. I'm talking to Demetrius Knight in the locker room on Monday, and he kind of opened up about that a little bit. Here's Bengals rookie linebacker Demetrius Knight. It seemed like going through the film, there were a lot of plays when you guys made big plays in the run game that you were moving before the snap, like right. You were seeing it.
Right.
Was there something that you felt like, was it in film from previous years or just tells during the game? Not that you're going to give away your secret, but right. Was there something you felt like was allowing you guys to do that?
It would definitely be all the film study.
Yeah.
I know. Again, I go back to my wife. She would tell you that I'm always dialed in on the film. I'm always on it. Mm-hmm. But it gets to that. Again, go back to the flow state. Yeah. You start to see tendencies from offensive linemen. You'll see if they're going to pull, they'll be set back a little in their stance, or they'll be looking where they're going. Tight ends give it away all the time, so I love being a former quarterback. I know when they come to the line, usually one run will go to the right. If they don't like it, they're going to check it. It's going to go to the left. So usually that one holds up. It held up yesterday a couple times with Joe. As you can see, he checked the play. I'm pointing this way, and that's the way the ball goes. And, both me and Logan are on point with that. You see everybody pointing, it's going this way. So it all flows together. So just continuing just to get better in that way, putting the film together, feeling it in the flow state, seeing tendencies, feeling people out, and be like, okay, got a good feeling for what's going on.
That was great from Demetrius. Maybe he was spilling too much there, but pointing out, being able to see the tells in the tight ends, being able to see the tells as the game goes by in whether the guards are going to pull or whatever. I mean, you saw that. There were a bunch of plays where it felt like you saw that. And for a rookie linebacker in his first game, to be picking that type of stuff up in the NFL, I thought is a pretty impressive thing.
There's a sweet spot here too, though. And there were highs and lows from that game defensively. There were, the Browns caveat that we keep going back to. I think the most impressive thing was it was just a defense that felt very clean. Like Demetrius there talks about communication and pointing and all that kinds of stuff. Well, how often last year were the old guys who were really, really smart, but the former staples of this Bengals defense, they'd be pointing this and pointing that, and let's communicate this and make this tweak. Oh, the ball was snapped 2 seconds ago, and now we're stuck out of position. Not that they were overthinking it, but it had that feel. And they were trying to do too much, and that's something we've spent the last 8 months talking about, and was an impetus of this defensive coordinator change. And that was one of the questions I made sure to ask Jordan Kovacs, like, why is this such a priority to make the defense feel clean, efficient, and let players be reactive? And also with Demetrius, he had a lot of information. And we also know, talking to coaches, that they weren't overloading these guys. There weren't a million checks and balances. That's not a football term, but things they had to worry about. They had the right information, and that is good game planning, good coaching, and putting guys who still have their flaws in position to be successful.
Let's get into a little segment we're going to do here. I'm going to call it NFL Pro Potpourri because it sounds fun. All kind of comes right off the tongue just so nicely. Stuff we found. We love to just go through the filters and see what we come across. Sometimes you come across the my bad, like we referenced earlier on Cam Taylor-Britt, or a guy who does. I always love the clap, the single clap when a guy sucks and he knows that he sucked on that rep, or maybe tapping on the helmet or something. You never know what you're going to find. Did you have any good NFL Pro Potpourri, stuff that stood out to you, random stuff going through it today?
Boy, this is an article we would have written if the Bengals didn't average like 0.5 yards per carry. They had some not wild, but new ideas with the run game, with how they use tight ends. There was a play where I believe, I got it right here, it was under center. It was originally like 2 split backs, and then one of the tight ends motioned kind of behind the other, and it turned in some sort of rollout, move the pocket type situation. Like, the Bengals had, we talked about, Frank Pollock's gone, new run game ideas. It felt like Burrow was like handing the ball off even differently to try to set up angles with the way that he handed the ball off. And then none of it worked. Well, I guess it did work. The run game was very successful early on, and I haven't done a full deep dive yet on how the Browns stopped it in the second half, but you could feel this scheme evolving, even if the rushing attack didn't statistically give you what you needed.
Yeah, no, there was tons of stuff out there where you felt like, so. I mean, I felt like coming away from that. I mentioned this in the walkout with Jay yesterday, that it felt like, man, you looked at the final rushing numbers, like, man, I thought it felt better than that. They just had enough plays that just didn't get as much as it felt like were there, or just narrowly got tripped up, or were close but not quite there. It felt better than the numbers suggested in that game a little bit, but I think some of that is part of it. I want to mention a couple of things. I'm just going to call this, so you want to be an NFL quarterback. This is a play where we get to see what Joe Burrow gets to see and what no one wants to see. That's Myles Garrett teleporting to the A-gap right into Joe Burrow's face and absolutely ending it. Joe's like, okay, they're blitzing here. I'm going to need to bring in some help. Samaje, please help me. Please don't let me get crushed right down the middle here. That would be a problem. And then watch Myles just zip around the end and just destroy Joe. He gets the throw off. It's incomplete. This is on fourth quarter play, 13:23 left. But man, watch 95 come off the edge and how quickly he moves from out there to all the way around. The Bengals interior has no shot of getting there and just absolutely owns Joe. And it's like, man, that's a tough scene right there. That's a tough. You want to play quarterback? Good luck.
Zach was asked about Dylan Fairchild today, and he said, yeah, things to learn. And I went right to that play. I've got my offensive drive enders right here on the Browns stops, and I have 95. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times that he's just come up. And that's just the pass. I'm sure he made an impact against the run as well. I also think that's an interesting play to bring up too, in the fact that Burrow still almost got that off an incredible throw. Jamar is literally 1 step away from making that play. There were 4 plays that were a step, a foot, a toe away from being what would have been a game-changing explosive for the Bengals offense. And if they hit on one of them, heck, they could have hit on 4 of them. We're talking about a Bengals team that just dropped 35 points and is in this great spot entering week 2. Well, they didn't. I think the biggest reason why this offense struggled down the stretch of that game, 1, you tip your cap to Myles Garrett. 2, there were like a moment or 2 here or there in pass protection, but I thought the pass protection on the whole was something you'll take. But then I do point to these plays to T and Jamar, because a common question I'm getting is, where was T? Where was Jamar? Well, they only threw the ball 23 times. And also that they tried those plays and they don't stick in your memory because they just missed, and they weren't bad. They just quite didn't work. And those were the difference between, Jamar and T doing a great job carrying the offense through and the defense having to pick up the slack.
Yeah, certainly. He ends up with Jamar one-on-one against Newsome down the sideline and throws the deep go ball. Not sure you could judge whether it was underthrown or like just a deep back shoulder, which we've seen Joe and Jamar try before. I mean, it would have been like the air yards on that, but it was probably about a 25, 30-yard air yard back shoulder, essentially, is where it ends up being. Jamar doesn't hold on to it. One that you see Jamar hold on to a lot, but that changes the dynamic of the game. That changes the dynamic of second half. He holds on to that. I have one more. And again, some of it is tip your cap to Cleveland stuff. And this is a third down after the interception. Okay, so after the interception, Burrow's is down here. He sees everybody lined up for a potential blitz. He audibles. If you look at the bottom of your screen here, has Chase Brown running underneath, and it just gets absolutely blown up. Burrow gets fooled on this essentially, because we look again when we get to this other view here. It looks like everyone's coming. So he runs a play that's perfect. Everyone's coming, except the linebacker backs up, pulls out, and runs right into where the play was designed to go. The side view, one more time, if you watch Chase Brown at the bottom, I mean, imagine this linebacker isn't here. We've seen that play a million times where it runs right up the gut. Tanner Hudson almost scored last year in the opener. That was the Tanner Hudson fumble play. But, it doesn't. You get fooled and you look stupid. That's life in the NFL. Sometimes you make the wrong call, you make the wrong check, and it ends up getting blown up in your face. And that's the difference between good, bad, and ugly offensively.
My note on that play was, that play was why we both spent like 10 minutes talking about Carson Schwessinger in our pre-draft linebackers show. I tipped my cap more on that play. There also was that play where Burrow forced, I believe, a slant over the middle into double cover, not double coverage, but Mike Gesicki was bracketed and Jamar's jumping up and down because he has kind of some free room to run there, and it could have even been 6. So I look at that as a read Joe missed. Joe also, I believe, on one of the deep balls he threw to Jamar, was there better leverage with Higgins? But just as a whole, I never criticized throwing a deep ball to Jamar just in general. So I get that when you had that coverage. But a couple of those, but it's not like Burrow had a bad day. But there were just a few little things, and then a throw that was a foot off, and then Cleveland made some plays, and you add it together, and it was like the worst offensive second half ever in NFL history. But it's funny because it doesn't feel that way, but of course it was.
Yeah, and you know what I'm going to be betting on? I think it's going to be my parlay boost at our show on Sunday at MGM. The Burrow bounce back. That's coming. Right? It's go over yards, over touchdowns, over rushing yards. You can already feel the Burrow bounce back coming against the Jags. I don't know that I'm predicting them to win, but I do think Burrow, you're going to see him come back in a big way because he always does. He always does. Just like we came back in a big way this year for the Rewatch show, which we're so excited about. This will be premiering on our YouTube channel every Monday at 8 p.m. this season. You can go watch it there, get the alerts, be a subscriber, and we'll have this show showing up for you every single week. Some weeks we'll have a coach on. Some weeks you'll hear from some coaches. We'll have a whole different combination of things. You'll always have me and Charlie and the tape. And so we're excited about bringing this every single week to you guys. All right. Have a good one, and we'll talk to you next time.